Have you ever wondered why we live by so many rules? Traffic lights, laws, social etiquette. It seems like our lives are one big system of control. But what if I told you there was a time when humanity answered to no one? A time when freedom was absolute. Let's journey back to a world ruled not by laws, but by instinct. Picture it. Early human groups, small and scattered. There were no leaders, no police, no courts. Your only guide was your gut. You did what you wanted, when you wanted. If you were strong enough to take something, it was yours. This was ultimate freedom, right? But this freedom had a dark side. Life was a constant, brutal battle for survival. It was unpredictable and incredibly dangerous. As human populations grew, so did the chaos. Imagine a village where anyone could harm anyone else without consequence, where disputes over food or territory were settled with pure violence. Communities were tearing themselves apart from the inside. Trust was impossible. The very freedom that defined their existence was also threatening to extinguish it. It became clear that absolute, unchecked freedom wasn't a paradise, it was a nightmare. Then, something remarkable happened. Slowly, generation by generation, a radical new idea began to take hold. People started to make a choice. It wasn't a single event, but a gradual shift in thinking across the globe. They began to willingly give up a piece of their freedom. They started to accept limits. They agreed that one person, or a group of elders, should have the authority to make decisions for the good of everyone. This was a turning point for humanity. Control was no longer seen as an enemy to be fought, but as a tool to be welcomed. Why? Because it brought something they craved even more than total freedom: safety. For the first time, there was a system, a way to resolve conflicts without bloodshed, a way to organize hunts, defend against threats, and plan for the future. Rules replaced raw instinct. With this new acceptance of authority, societies began to flourish. Organized power meant that violence could be regulated. Stealing had consequences. Murder was punished. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable. This stability allowed for something incredible: cooperation on a massive scale. People could now work together to build, to create, to innovate. They traded a slice of their personal liberty for the security of the group. And in doing so, they laid the foundation for civilization itself. From the first village elder settling a dispute to the complex legal systems we have today, the principle is the same. We accept control because we understand that shared rules create a predictable, safer world for all of us. This ancient bargain is the invisible architecture holding our modern societies together. So the next time you stop at a red light, remember that you're participating in a decision our ancestors made thousands of years ago. The decision to trade a little freedom for a lot of order. This fundamental shift from chaos to control is arguably the most important moment in our history. It's the reason we can live in cities of millions, build incredible technologies, and dream of the future. It all started the day humans looked at the chaos around them and chose to accept control. The first topic is life without limits. Imagine a world without any rules. No laws, no police, no governments, nothing. Just you, your instincts, and the raw, untamed wilderness. Sounds like ultimate freedom, right? But what was life really like before humans accepted control? Let's take a journey back in time, to an era where life had no limits. Before civilization, as we know it, our ancestors lived in small, tight-knit groups. Their world wasn't governed by written laws or shared moral codes. Instead, their actions were driven by the most basic, powerful forces: hunger, fear, and opportunity. If you wanted something, food, a better shelter, a sharp stone end, you were strong enough to take it. You just did. There was no one to stop you. No court to appeal to. This was freedom in its purest form, but it came at a staggering price. Life was incredibly unstable. Every single day was a struggle not just against nature, but against each other. Imagine two people wanting the same piece of fruit. Today, we might argue, or one might buy it. Back then, it could easily escalate into a violent, life-or-death conflict. Without a neutral authority, a referee to call the shots, every disagreement had the potential to become a battle. Power wasn't held by institutions. It was held by the strongest individual at that exact moment. And that could change in a heartbeat. This constant uncertainty made life exhausting. You could never truly relax. Your safety depended entirely on your own strength and your ability to stay constantly alert. Trust was a luxury few could afford. Alliances were temporary, shifting like sand. The person who helped you hunt a mammoth one day might try to steal your food the next. Cooperation existed, but it was purely transactional. lasting only as long as it was immediately useful for everyone involved. Long-term planning was almost impossible. Why bother storing food for the winter if someone stronger could just take it from you tomorrow? Why build a sturdy shelter if your group could be driven out of the territory next week? Life was lived in the present moment because the future was a terrifying, unpredictable fog. This world without limits put an immense weight on every single person. You were your own defender, your own provider, and your own judge. Weakness wasn't just a disadvantage, it was a death sentence. But as human populations slowly began to grow, the cracks in this system started to show. More people meant more competition for resources. More competition meant more conflict. The very things that helped small, scattered bands survive were now tearing larger groups apart. People started to notice a pattern. Groups that were constantly fighting amongst themselves didn't last. They wasted precious energy and resources on internal power struggles instead of on finding food, raising children, or defending against predators. This constant state of high-stakes, high-stress living was not the peaceful, idyllic, natural life we sometimes imagine. It was raw, brutal, and draining. But it was also the crucible that forged a profound realization in the human mind. The lesson was simple, yet revolutionary. Ultimate freedom doesn't lead to a utopia. It leads to chaos. For a community to not just survive, but to thrive, it needed something more than just individual strength. It needed coordination, it needed trust, it needed security. And so, the seed of a new idea was planted. Humans began to understand that maybe, just maybe, giving up a little bit of freedom wasn't a loss. Maybe limits weren't chains, but shields. Maybe rules could protect the weak from the strong, and allow everyone to live with a little less fear. This incredible shift in thinking didn't happen overnight. It took generations, but it laid the essential groundwork for the next great chapter in the human story. The voluntary acceptance of control, the birth of society, and the beginning of the world we know today. What do you think? Would you trade the security of our modern world for the absolute freedom of the past? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. The second topic is, chaos becomes a threat. Have you ever wondered why we have so many rules? Why we build governments, create laws, and accept authority? It seems so counterintuitive to our desire for freedom. To understand why, we need to travel back in time, to a point when humanity stood at a crossroads, a moment when chaos, once a part of life, became our greatest enemy. Imagine early human societies, small, nomadic groups wandering the landscape. In this setting, chaos wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just life. Freedom was absolute. But as our ancestors began to settle down, forming larger, more permanent communities, something changed. What once felt like liberating freedom started to feel incredibly dangerous. The very fabric of these growing societies began to tear. Think about it. With more people living closer together, disputes became unavoidable. A disagreement over resources, a personal insult, a broken promise. Without any shared rules or an impartial judge, how were these conflicts resolved? Purely by strength. Your ability to win an argument depended on how strong you were, or how many powerful friends you could rally to your side. This wasn't a system of justice. It was a system of might makes right. This led to devastating cycles of retaliation. A perceived wrong by one person would be met with a response from another, which would then trigger another reaction, and so on. A small spark could ignite a raging fire of vengeance that could consume entire families or clans. Violence didn't stay contained. It spiraled, creating a constant state of tension and fear. Life became a minefield of potential conflicts. This internal chaos was a cancer. It weakened groups from the inside out. People grew suspicious of their neighbors. Trust eroded. Cooperation, the very thing that had allowed humans to thrive, began to break down. Why would you work together with someone you might be fighting tomorrow? Why would you share resources with a family you see as a rival? Productivity plummeted. Fields were left untended, hunts were less successful, and long-term projects were impossible. A group torn apart by internal strife is an easy target. While they were busy fighting each other, they were vulnerable to everything else: rival groups, predators, natural disasters. The realization must have been terrifying. The biggest threat to our survival was no longer just a lion in the grass or the winter's famine. It was us. It was our own uncontrolled, chaotic behavior. Humanity was on a path to self-destruction. Faced with this existential threat, some groups began to experiment. They tried something radical. They started to introduce order. It began simply, maybe they agreed to let a respected elder mediate disputes. Maybe they designated a council to make decisions for the good of the whole group. They started to establish consequences for actions that harmed the community. Killing a neighbor wasn't just a personal matter anymore. It was an offense against the group, and there would be a punishment. It is crucial to understand that these first steps toward control were born from a huminded sense of morality or justice. They were born from desperation. They were practical, a matter of pure survival. And the most important thing, the groups that embraced some form of structure, even a rudimentary one, started to see immediate results. They survived longer. They were more prosperous, with fewer internal conflicts to worry about. Daily life became more predictable, more stable. People could plant crops with a reasonable expectation of harvesting them. They could raise their children without the constant fear of a feud erupting. Even this small amount of control brought a huge increase in safety and security. This success triggered a profound shift in the human mindset. Control, which for millennia might have been seen as pure oppression, started to be viewed differently. It started to look like protection. The idea of stability, of predictability, suddenly became more valuable than the allure of absolute, untamed freedom. Chaos, the old normal, was now seen for what it was: a deadly threat. For the first time, large numbers of people became willing to make a trade. They would voluntarily give up a piece of their individual independence in exchange for collective security. This was a revolutionary bargain. It was the moment we chose the path toward civilization. We accepted that living together required us to accept limits on our own behavior. Now, let's be clear, this early control was rarely fair or equal. It almost always favored the strong, the charismatic, or the well-connected. Power was concentrated in the hands of a few, but even this imperfect, biased system was better than the alternative. It was better than the bloody, unpredictable chaos that threatened to wipe them out. It reduced uncertainty, and that reduction in uncertainty allowed for something incredible: planning for the future. This is the pivotal moment when humanity began its long, complicated relationship with power and authority. We didn't learn to love control. Not at first. We learned to tolerate it. We accepted it as a lesser of two evils. We chose order because chaos had proven to be a far greater tyrant. That fundamental decision, made in the distant past out of a desperate need to survive, set the course for everything that followed. It's the reason we have cities, nations, and laws today. It's the foundational compromise upon which all of human society is built. The third topic is why control was accepted. Have you ever wondered why we live in a world full of rules, laws, and governments? Why didn't we just stick with total freedom? It's a fascinating question. The shift from absolute freedom to structured control was honnête, because people suddenly woke up one day and decided to be more disciplined. It was a trade-off, a pragmatic choice made in the face of chaos. Let's dive into why our ancestors chose control over liberty. Imagine a world with no rules. Sounds great, right? You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. But there's a catch. So can everyone else. That means your neighbor can take your food, a stranger can claim your shelter, and disputes are settled by brute force. This is a world of constant conflict, anxiety, and fear. Survival is a minute-to-minute battle, not just against nature, but against each other. This was a problem that absolute freedom couldn't solve. It created a reality where life was, as the philosopher Thomas Hobbes put it, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. As the pressure mounted, humans started to weigh the costs and benefits. Was this unpredictable, violent existence really worth it? The answer, it turned out, was no. And this is where control enters the picture. The first and most powerful thing that control offered was predictability. Suddenly, there were rules. Certain actions had known consequences. If you stole from someone, there was a defined punishment. If you helped your neighbor, you might receive help in return. This simple shift was revolutionary. It replaced constant uncertainty with a degree of order. People could finally anticipate the outcomes of their actions and the actions of others. This reduced the chronic fear that paralyzed daily life. Life became less of a terrifying lottery. Along with predictability came a reduction in internal violence. In a world without authority, every offense is personal. If someone wrongs you, it's up to you to get revenge. This leads to endless cycles of retaliation, feuds that can tear families and groups apart. But with a central authority chief, a council of elders disputes could be mediated. Justice, or at least a resolution, was handled by a third party. This simple mechanism saved enormous amounts of energy and, more importantly, lives. Groups that managed to limit internal conflict were inherently stronger and more cohesive. Their strength didn't come from having tougher individuals, but from wasting less effort fighting each other. Another major selling point for control was protection. A leader or a governing body could promise safety. Safety from what? Well, safety from both internal threats, like the threat we mentioned earlier, and external threats. Imagine a rival group wants your territory. A single individual or a disorganized mob stands little chance, but a group with a leader can organize a defense, build fortifications, and create a strategy. Control allowed for a coordinated response to danger. Rules also protected vital resources. Instead of a free-for-all over the local water source or hunting grounds, rules could ensure sustainable use and fair distribution. In exchange for following the leader, you received security. For people living on the edge of survival, that was a deal too good to pass up. But control did more than just prevent bad things. It enabled good things. Specifically, it allowed for cooperation on a scale that was impossible before. Think about large-scale projects, building a defensive wall, hunting a massive animal like a mammoth, or constructing complex irrigation systems. These tasks require dozens, even hundreds of people working together in a coordinated fashion. When do they do it? How are the rewards shared? Control provided the framework for this organization. Everyone knew their role, their responsibilities, and what to expect. This organized effort allowed human groups to achieve things far beyond the capacity of any single individual. It was the birth of teamwork as a survival strategy. This newfound stability also had a profound psychological effect. It created the space for long-term thinking. When you're really not worried about where your next meal is coming from or if you'll survive the night, you can start to plan. You can think about the future. With stability, humans could plan for the changing seasons, develop agriculture, store surplus food for winter, and build more permanent settlements. This is the foundation of progress. Knowledge could be passed down from one generation to the next, not just as scattered survival tips, but as a structured body of wisdom. Control didn't just help people survive the present, it allowed them to invest in the future. There's another subtle but crucial reason why control was accepted. It shifted the burden of responsibility. In a state of total freedom, you are completely on your own. Your survival is your problem, and yours alone. This is an immense psychological weight to carry. Under a system of control, you become part of a larger group. The group, as a whole, shares the responsibility for survival. The leader is responsible for making big decisions, the hunters for providing food, the guards for watching for danger. This shared responsibility reduces individual pressure and anxiety. You are no longer alone against the world. There's a sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than yourself, that provides immense comfort. So, let's be clear. When humans accepted control, they gave up a significant amount of personal freedom. They could no longer do whatever they wanted. But what they got in return was far more valuable: security, stability, and a dramatically increased chance of survival. It was a practical, calculated choice. Less freedom for more life. This wasn't a one-time decision, and it didn't mean that people stopped questioning authority. Resistance to control is a constant theme throughout human history, but time and time again, systems of control remained because, for all their flaws, they worked. They provided a framework that allowed societies to grow and thrive. Over time, what began as a pragmatic choice became ingrained as a habit. New generations were born into these systems of authority. For them, living under rules wasn't a trade-off. It was just the way the world worked. Obedience became a social norm, a part of the culture passed down through generations. The acceptance of control fundamentally reshaped human society. It created the power structures and hierarchies that define civilization. Was this transition perfect? Absolutely not. It opened the door for new problems, like the abuse of power and inequality. But it was effective. It was the critical turning point when the desperate scramble for individual survival transformed into the organized project of building a society. The story of how we accepted control is really the story of how we became us. It's the story of how scattered, vulnerable individuals learn to cooperate and build something lasting. So next time you find yourself frustrated by a rule or a law, take a moment to think about the chaotic world it was designed to replace. Our complex systems of control are the legacy of a fundamental choice made long ago. The choice of order over chaos, of security over absolute freedom. The fourth topic is the first systems of authority. Have you ever wondered how we went from small, scattered groups of humans to the massive, complex societies we live in today? It's a huge leap, right? From chaos to civilization? A big part of that answer lies in a single, powerful concept: authority. But authority isn't just about one person being the strongest. For societies to truly grow, control needed a system. It needed structure. So, how did the very first systems of authority actually work? Let's go back in time. Once our ancestors accepted that some form of control was necessary for survival, the next logical step was to organize it. You couldn't just rely on the strongest person in the group forever. What happens when they get old, or sick, or challenged by someone stronger? That kind of control is unstable, based purely on fear and physical strength. For long-term stability, authority had to become something more. It needed a system. The earliest systems were, as you might expect, quite simple. At their core, they had a few key components. First, you had leaders. These were they decided where to hunt, when to plant, or how to deal with a neighboring group. Second, you had their job was to maintain order and make sure the leader's decisions were carried out. Think of them as the first proto-police force. Third, and this is crucial, you had rules. These rules defined what was acceptable behavior and what wasn't. Don't steal your neighbor's food. Contribute to the group's defense. These weren't complex legal codes, but simple, understandable guidelines for living together. And finally, you had consistent punishment. If you broke a rule, you knew what to expect. This consistency was key. It removed randomness and made the social environment predictable. This was a major shift. Authority started to become less personal and more symbolic. It wasn't just about obeying Grog the Strong. It was about respecting the position of the leader. This leadership was reinforced through rituals, special clothing, or traditions passed down through generations. People began to obey the title of the chief, the elder, not just the individual holding it. This meant that when a leader died or was replaced, the system didn't collapse. The position remained, and someone new would step into it. This separation of the person from the position was a revolutionary step in human social organization. It made control stable and predictable. Everyone in the group understood the boundaries and the hierarchy. They knew who was in charge and what the rules were. As these small bands of humans grew into larger tribes and villages, these simple systems had to evolve. A single leader couldn't manage everything anymore. This is where we see the expansion of authority. Power started to be shared. Councils of elders might be formed to advise the chief. Different leaders might be responsible for different aspects of life, like warfare or farming. Decisions were no longer the impulsive whims of one person. They became more deliberative, more thought out. These expanding rules were also woven into the very fabric of society. They weren't just written down. They were reinforced through customs, stories, myths, and, very importantly, religion. Religion and authority often became intertwined. The gods, people were told, had chosen the leaders. The rules weren't just practical guidelines. They were divine commands. This gave authority an incredible boost in legitimacy. Disobeying the chief wasn't just a social mistake. It could be seen as a sin, an act against the gods themselves. This deep-seated belief greatly strengthened obedience and social cohesion. It made people willing to follow the rules, even when no one was watching. But authority wasn't just about telling people what to do. It was also a powerful tool for organization. A central authority could organize and manage resources on a scale that was previously impossible. They could control vast areas of land, directing who farmed where. They could collect and redistribute food, creating a surplus that could support the group through lean times. They could also organize labor for massive projects, building irrigation canals, defensive walls, or monumental temples. This level of coordination dramatically increased the group's efficiency and chances of survival. It allowed for specialization. Not everyone had to be a hunter or a farmer anymore. Some could become craftsmen, soldiers, or priests, all supported by the organized surplus. Of course, this new, organized world wasn't a perfect utopia. The rise of authority systems also created something new and lasting: hierarchy. By its very nature, a system of authority means that some people have more power than others. Some gave orders, and others obeyed. This inevitably led to social stratification and inequality. Those empowered often gained access to more resources, more prestige, and a better quality of life. The seeds of social class were sown in these very first systems. It was a trade-off in exchange for the safety, stability, and productivity that authority provided. Societies accepted a certain level of inequality. But despite this downside, the benefits were undeniable. These systems allowed human societies to not just survive, but to thrive. and expand at an incredible rate. Small villages grew into bustling towns. Towns merged and grew into the first cities, with a central authority to regulate conflict, organize a collective defense against outsiders, and coordinate massive labor projects. The scale of human endeavor exploded. Civilization, with all its complexity, its art, its science, and its architecture, simply depended on these structures. Think about it. Without a system to manage disputes, a growing city would collapse into violence. Without a way to organize an army, it would be conquered. Without a way to manage food and water for thousands of people, it would starve. These early systems of authority provided the essential framework for everything that followed. They laid the foundation for our modern concepts of law, government, and public institutions. Control was no longer a temporary state dependent on one person's strength. It became a permanent, structural feature of human society. So, the next time you think about government or laws, remember their ancient roots, the journey from the chaotic, unpredictable life of our earliest ancestors to the structured world we know today was made possible by this fundamental innovation. The creation of systems of authority was the critical step that turned scattered human groups into organized, enduring societies. It was the final, and perhaps most important, piece of the puzzle in the transition from chaos to civilization. The fifth topic is freedom traded for order. Have you ever wondered why we follow rules? Why we stop at red lights even when no one is around? Or why we queue in lines? It all goes back to one of the most significant, yet unwritten, decisions in human history. The moment we chose order over freedom. This wasn't a single event, a grand meeting, or a signed treaty. It was a slow, gradual realization born from brutal experience. For early humans, absolute freedom was a double-edged sword. It meant you could do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, but it also meant anyone else could do the same to you. Unlimited freedom came with unbearable risk. Life was a constant battle for survival against nature, against predators, and often against each other. There was no safety, no stability, no future beyond the next meal or the next sunrise. Out of this chaos, a new idea began to take shape. Order. Humans discovered that by giving up a little bit of individual freedom, they could gain something far more valuable in return. Security. By accepting a system of control, a set of shared rules, they could create a world where survival wasn't a daily gamble. This trade-off, this exchange of liberty for safety, fundamentally changed what it meant to be human. Authority became a part of daily life. For the first time, people's actions were guided not just by their own instincts and desires, but by a set of external rules and shared expectations. These weren't just arbitrary commands. They were the building blocks of society. This new structure allowed for incredible advancements. Large groups of people could now live together without descending into constant conflict. With order came the ability to plan for the future. Food could be cultivated, harvested, and stored for lean times. Labor could be divided, allowing individuals to specialize in different skills, becoming toolmakers, hunters, builders, or healers. Knowledge, once lost with the death of an individual, could now be preserved and passed down through generations. Control wasn't just about restriction, it was about creation. It made stability possible, and from that stability, civilization could finally begin to grow. The small, scattered bands of hunter-gatherers could now form larger, more complex communities, villages, and eventually, cities. Of course, this monumental trade came with a heavy price. The introduction of control and authority inevitably created hierarchy. Some people gained power over others. The leader, the chieftain, the council, they made the rules, and others were expected to follow. This was the birth of inequality. For the first time in human history, your position in society wasn't just determined by your strength or skill, but by the social structure you were born into. Obedience became a virtue, and dissent became a threat to the fragile stability everyone depended on. Freedom was no longer an absolute right. It was a privilege granted and regulated by those in power. Yet, despite these clear costs, most people accepted this new reality. Why? Because the alternative was so much worse. The promise of safety, of knowing you and your family wouldn't be randomly attacked, of having a reliable source of food, this felt far better than the terrifying uncertainty of a world without rules. The fear of chaos was a more powerful motivator than the desire for absolute freedom. Order provided a sense of predictability that was deeply comforting. Over thousands of years, something remarkable happened. This external control began to move inward. The rules of the tribe became the rules of the mind. Instead of relying solely on a leader or a group of warriors to enforce order, humans learned to regulate themselves. This internalization of control is one of the most powerful forces in human society. Concepts like shame, guilt, duty, and honor emerged as internal mechanisms for ensuring people followed the rules, even when no one was watching. Tradition and belief systems, like religions and mythology, provided powerful narratives that reinforced social norms and gave them a sense of divine or sacred importance. People weren't just following rules because they were afraid of punishment. They were following them because they believed it was the right thing to do. This self-control became the invisible engine of civilization. Society could function smoothly, not because of a constant threat of force, but because the vast majority of people had integrated its rules into their own sense of self. Control no longer just lived in the king's decree. It lived inside the human heart. Look around you today. Our entire modern world is built upon this ancient foundation. Our legal systems, our governments, our schools, our workplaces, every institution you can think of as a complex system of control designed to maintain order. The social expectations we navigate every day, from how we dress for a job interview to how we behave at a family dinner, are all echoes of this original trade-off. The question we face today is not whether control should exist. It has been with us since the dawn of civilization, and it's the very thing that holds our complex world together. The real question is how that control is used, and by whom. Who gets to make the rules? Who benefits from them? And how do we balance the undeniable need for order with the equally important human desire for freedom and Understanding the day humans first accepted control is more than just a history lesson. It's the key to understanding the very structure of our world, the constant tension between the individual and the collective, between chaos and order. Civilization did not eliminate chaos. It simply learned to manage it. We contained it within a framework of laws, norms, and shared beliefs, but the potential for chaos is always there, lurking just beneath the surface of our well-ordered lives. And the balance we strike is always fragile. Every new law, every social movement, every political debate is, in some way, a renegotiation of that original bargain. We are constantly adjusting the scales, weighing how much freedom we are willing to sacrifice for an extra measure of security, and how much risk we are willing to accept for a greater degree of liberty. This choice, first made by our distant ancestors in a world we can barely imagine, continues to shape humanity every single day. It is the defining struggle and the greatest achievement of our species. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this exploration interesting, consider subscribing for more journeys into the big questions that define us. See you next time.